I've done the biggest, boldest cruise ships out there. Water slides, zip lines, Broadway shows, you name it. But this time I traded it all for silence, stillness, and a ship most people have never even heard of. Was it peaceful bliss or painfully boring? Well, let's find out. Hey y'all, I'm Evan with Family at Sea, where we help make every cruise unforgettable. This is Explora One. It's quiet, refined, and it's nothing like the ships I usually sail. This was my first ever luxury cruise, and while I had plenty of questions at the start, there was one even bigger question waiting for me at the end. And that's where this story really begins. If you're ready, I am. Let's go. Explora One is the first ship from Explora Journeys, a luxury cruise line created by the Aponte Vago family, which is the same family that owns MSC Cruises. But make no mistake, this isn't MSC in disguise. Explora Journeys operates as its own company, independent from MSC, with its own leadership team, its own ships, and a mission that couldn't be further from the mass market model. The Explora One comes in at just over 63,000 gross tons and carries a maximum of 922 guests with 640 crew. That's a crew to guest ratio of about 1.4 to 1, which is on par with the most premium cruise lines in the world. Every stateroom on board is a suite with a private oceanfront terrace. No inside cabins, no ocean views, no filler categories, just spacious rooms designed to feel more like a modern hotel than a traditional cruise ship. You'll find 6 restaurants, 12 bars and lounges, and 4 pools, including one in a fully enclosed solarium for quiet, climate-controlled relaxation. But what really sets this ship apart isn't the venues, it's the pace. It's a completely different energy from the ships I'm used to, and that's exactly what made me curious enough to try it. If you were lucky enough to sail with Explora Journeys in her first couple years, you could snag some truly amazing deals, but those days are sadly behind us, and today, luxury comes with a price tag, one that Explora Journeys makes no attempt to hide. For a 7-night sailing aboard the Explora One, you're typically looking at around $7,000 to $12,000 for an ocean terrace suite, depending on the level and location. Penthouse suites range from $11,000 to $17,000, residences run $14,000 to $25,000, and if you're eyeing an owner's residence, expect to pay anywhere from $60,000 to more than $100,000. It's a far cry from the $3,000 Yacht Club interior suite on MSC, but this isn't the same game. And honestly, with pricing all over the place and promotions changing constantly, it's hard to know if you're getting a good deal or just biting on the bait, and that's why we always book our cruises through Cruises It. They not only save us money, but they also unlock some perks and upgrades we wouldn't get on our own. And with their low price guarantee, you can rest easy knowing you're not leaving money or peace of mind on the table. If you're planning to cruise on the Explora One or any Honestly ship, click the link in the description below or give them a call and let them know Evan from Family at Sea sent you. You'll be glad you did. We boarded Explora One with plenty of questions. Would a ship this serene actually keep our interest? Or would we find ourselves missing the energy and variety we've come to expect from the larger ships we usually sail? Early on, we got an unexpected win. We had originally booked an ocean terrace suite for $8,800, but ended up winning an upgrade bid to a retreat residence for $5,200 more. Now, that's still a big sum of money, but this suite normally sells for around $23,000. So getting it for a total of $14,000 gave us the chance to experience Explora Journeys at its highest level without paying top shelf pricing. Our upgraded suite came with more space, a hot tub on the balcony, and dedicated butler space, and that definitely took things to the next level. Our butler, Kartik, was phenomenal. He somehow struck the perfect balance of service, always available but never in the way, handling everything behind the scenes, adding just the right amount of personal touch to make the week feel seamless. While the upgrade gave us a front row seat to see what Explora Journeys can deliver at their highest level, what impressed us most was how consistently strong the experience felt through the entire ship, regardless of which suite you're in. From the moment you board the ship, you're struck by just how thoughtfully designed things are. Everything felt clean, modern, and thoughtfully executed. The light wood tones, soft textures, and floor-to-ceiling windows give it a bright, welcoming feel across the entire ship. Even details like the heated bathroom floors in the suites showed a level of care that's rare even in luxury cruising. There's no glitz here, no over-the-top decor, just calm, quiet luxury done right. And service throughout the ship followed the same philosophy. Our sailing only had around 800 guests on board, making the guest-to-crew ratio an even more impressive impressive 1.25 to 1. That kind of staffing shows because help wasn't just available, it was already on the way before we even thought to ask. The hosts felt genuinely proud of their work, and it showed in how intentional and welcoming every interaction was. The lobby bar at the mid of Deck 4 quickly became our home base, thanks in large part to Anop, the head bartender who's been there since the ship first launched, and he is truly proud of the work he does. If you enjoy great conversation and connecting with fellow cruisers in a relaxed atmosphere, this is the spot. Dining across the ship was consistently excellent, with each venue offering something unique. And while every restaurant brought its own strengths, what really impressed us was the Emporium Marketplace, which is Explora Journeys' take on a European food hall. Now, this is not your typical cruise ship buffet. In fact, it's not a buffet at all. There were no crowded lines, no trays of lukewarm food, and no elbowing your way to a carving station. Instead, most dishes were made to order, service was fast and friendly, and the space felt calm and elevated from start to finish. You simply walk up, tell them what plate you'd like, and moments later you're handed a plate with fresh food cooked to perfection. It didn't overshadow the other restaurants on board, but it absolutely redefined what a casual meal at sea can feel like. Anthology, their specialty tasting menu experience, was another major win. It's 165 euros per person, plus 70 more for the wine pairing, so it's definitely not cheap, but it was worth every cent. Every course was executed beautifully, and unlike what we've seen with a lot of meals like this where the chefs sometimes sacrifice taste for presentation, at Anthology, every flavor lived up to the plating. Whether you're a foodie or just want to treat yourself to something exceptional, this meal is absolutely worth splurging on. We were also impressed by the strength of the vegetarian dishes throughout the ship. Every menu we saw included thoughtful, plant-based options that felt just as carefully crafted as the rest of the meal. Not an afterthought like we see on a lot of other cruise lines, which my wife truly appreciated. The pool areas were another highlight. For a ship this size, having 4 distinct pools created plenty of options to unwind, whether you were soaking up the sun, swimming laps, or enjoying the tranquil vibe inside the solarium. And with the quieter crowd and only 50 kids on board, the overall energy around the decks felt relaxed, not rushed. And then there were the unexpected surprises that set this experience apart, like discovering the ship's onboard art gallery included original works by Andy Warhol that are part of a private collection, or the tendering process, which was smooth, efficient, and showed us that tendering doesn't actually have to be a terrible experience filled with long lines and stress. Honestly, these are the kind of moments that could easily go wrong but never seem to on Explora Journeys. Even the entertainment, which we were admittedly skeptical of before the cruise, turned out to be a pleasant surprise. The shows weren't high-budget production spectacles like you'll find on the megaships, but they were still creative, entertaining, and a great way to wind down the evening. The cruise director, Martin Moss, deserves a special mention here as well. He recently joined Explora Journeys after a long career with Princess Cruises, and he was fantastic. He was hands-on, personable, and incredibly polished. He managed to strike that rare balance between professional and approachable, and his presence gave the entertainment program a sense of structure and warmth that elevated everything around him. And entertainment didn't end after the shows. You'd find live lounge music in the evenings down at the lobby bar, karaoke in the Astern Lounge, and even a DJ spinning at the Sky Bar up on Deck 14 as guests danced under the stars while we pulled out of port. It was moments like those, unplanned and unscripted, that made the ship feel alive without ever feeling chaotic. And with long port calls in nearly every destination, the itinerary felt relaxed and immersive instead of rushed. Even though we visited a different port nearly every single day, we never felt pressured to rush back, and that unhurried pace let the experience breathe in a way that's rare in cruising. And it wasn't just the ship that felt different. The entire experience was built on a different rhythm. One where time slows down, service feels personal, and you actually get to be present instead of rushing from one scheduled event to the next. Explora Journeys didn't try to impress us with big gimmicks or flashy attractions. It impressed us by getting the fundamentals right and delivering them with elegance and intention. Of course, perfection is a high bar, even for a ship like this. While most things exceeded expectations, a few didn't, so let's take a closer look. Even on a ship this well executed, not everything was perfect. There wasn't anything that overshadowed the experience, but because everything else was so thoughtfully done, that these rough edges felt a little out of place. The conservatory pool on our sea day was one of the only times the ship actually did feel crowded. Every lounger was claimed early, many with just a towel, and the space filled up fast. You expect this on the megaships, but I was genuinely surprised to see this happen on a ship this size. Because it's the only fully enclosed pool on board, it's also where everyone naturally went when the weather wasn't ideal. And that peaceful vibe the ship is known for got stretched thin. We also ran into some friction when it came to dining hours. Dinner doesn't begin until 6:30 p.m. and for those of us who prefer earlier meals, it left a bit of a gap. Room service was available, but between meal windows, it wasn't always easy to grab a quick bite. This wasn't anything major, but for a brand so focused on comfort and personalization, a bit more flexibility would go a long way. Marble & Co., the Explora One steakhouse, was our least favorite dining experience on board. The prime rib I ordered was cooked properly, but it was a bad cut and had a large tendon running through the middle, and it was surprisingly bland. From others I talked to on board and online, this wasn't an isolated issue either. When we shared that feedback, the restaurant manager acknowledged it was a known issue and even mentioned they typically recommend guests choose something else because they know most people don't like this cut of steak. Now, to their credit, they invited us back for another night, but with so many venues to experience and a special dinner with the captain already scheduled, we didn't want to give up the chance to try another restaurant just to repeat one we didn't love. Next time, unless we hear they've upgraded their cuts, we'll likely skip this venue entirely. We also had an issue with the hot tub on our balcony. The one time we planned to use it, it wasn't working, and by the time it was fixed, that window of relaxation had passed. Later, when I mentioned it to the head butler during a brief conversation, his response came off as dismissive. More of a, well, it's working now, than a, I'm sorry that affected your day. I think he noticed my reaction to his dismissive response though, because the team later followed up with a complimentary couples massage, which we truly appreciated. But initially, it didn't feel like the kind of empathetic response you'd expect from a brand at this level. The in-suite lighting controls were another frustration. There's a digital display that's supposed to make it easy to control the climate and lighting across the entire suite, but it was laggy, overly complex, and unintuitive, especially for a system that's supposed to enhance comfort. Even the physical wall switches didn't always respond unless you held them just right. So for a ship that nails so many design elements, this felt more like a tech demo than a cutting-edge control panel. Embarkation in Istanbul was also more confusing than it should have been, but a lot of that probably falls more on the port than it does Explora Journeys, but it's still worth mentioning. Finding the check-in area at the port there in Istanbul was difficult as well, with minimal signage, and honestly the staff seemed just as unsure about where we should go as we were. Once we found our way inside, we had to show our passport 4 separate times, and each station seemed unaware that the last one had already done that. It felt like information wasn't being passed along internally, and for a brand built on seamlessness, that disjointed first impression missed the mark. Guest services was another area that lacked polish. There were 3 desks located behind a wall near the lobby bar and 2 more excursion desks nearby, but none of them were clearly marked, and the handful of times we needed assistance, the wait times were honestly longer than what you would expect. It wasn't chaotic, but it felt like the people there were just a bit absent, and it definitely didn't feel like luxury. And then there were the elevators. On each set of these, there are 4 elevators total, with 2 on each side and a couch separating them. But the call buttons are split into 2 groups, so if you press the button on the left side, it only calls these 2 elevators, and the other buttons call the ones on the other side. And what happens was people would walk around and press both buttons, and then the elevator would open on the wrong side, and instead of just being able to cut through the middle, you'd have to walk around the couch, and by the time you got over there, the doors would be closing. It was a pretty chaotic sort of setup, and it seems like that's something that would be really easy to fix, but they're choosing to prioritize form over function. A host told us this setup was recently changed from the original design, possibly in response to passenger feedback, but the result created more confusion than it solved. Something as basic as calling an elevator shouldn't feel like a puzzle. None of these issues were deal breakers. They didn't define the trip or outweigh the incredible moments we had on board. But on a ship built to this standard, the contrast was noticeable. And it made us start to wonder, was the whole slower, quieter, more intentional vibe really enough for someone like me who's used to the adrenaline of the larger ships? And that's when something shifted. Because what came next didn't just change our minds, it changed how we think about cruising altogether. We came in with a real concern. Would we get bored? On a ship with no water slides, no rock climbing walls, and no glitzy Broadway shows, would the calm turn into dull? Well, it turns out that fear was completely unfounded. Because this ship doesn't need to compete with the chaos of megaships. It's playing an entirely different game. The shift didn't happen in some dramatic moment. It was quiet and gradual, somewhere between a slow breakfast at Faux Rouge and an unhurried afternoon in a poolside lounger. We realized Explora Journeys wasn't trying to entertain us. It was inviting us to breathe. No schedules to chase, no crowded venues, and no quick, let's eat before the next thing starts. Just space. Space to rest, space to connect, and space to be fully present. And in that space, we started to feel different. We weren't trying to fit it all in. We were sipping cocktails and having actual conversations. We were watching the ocean and losing track of time. It's hard to describe if you've only cruised the big name brands, but imagine a ship that isn't trying to dazzle you every second because it knows real luxury is about ease, not excess. And that ease shows up everywhere, in how your espresso arrives just the way you like it without asking twice, in the way your suite is refreshed so discreetly you forget anyone was ever there, and in the absence of upcharges and constant sales pitches. Explora Journeys doesn't just give you a vacation, it gives you your headspace back. We expected peace and quiet, but what we didn't expect was how much we'd crave it once we had a taste. This wasn't just a break from reality, it was a full-on reset. And it completely changed how we think about cruising. So, who is Explora Journeys actually for? Because this isn't just another premium cruise line. It's not trying to be a quieter version of Royal Caribbean or a fancier version of Celebrity. Explora Journeys is its own thing entirely, something in between the casual luxury of Viking and the polished elegance of Silver Sea, but more modern, more relaxed, and with a much younger demographic than you'll find on other luxury lines, as it's built with a different kind of traveler in mind. This is a brand for people who want luxury without the stuffiness, for guests who love great design, refined experiences, and exceptional service, but don't need to be doted on every second or have someone pull out their chair at dinner. It's also for people who actually enjoy being on the ship itself, because this isn't about port hopping just to check off destinations. The itineraries are intentionally slower, with longer port calls that give you real time to explore, and the onboard experience is designed to be just as enjoyable as the destinations. You don't need to dress up, and there's no pressure to impress anyone, but you'll still find thoughtful touches throughout the journey, from the calming scent that greets you when you walk into your suite, to the handwritten welcome notes and curated in-suite amenities that quietly remind you this is luxury done differently. That said, Explora Journeys won't be the right fit for everyone. If you cruise for the big shows, belly laugh comedy, or non-stop theme nights, this is not your ship. If you need a packed schedule to keep from getting bored, or if you want a half dozen water slides and glow-in-the-dark laser tag for the kids, you're gonna be disappointed. It's not that there's nothing to do, because there's always something happening if you're looking for it. There's a small casino on board, and you can usually find live music in at least one venue if that's what you're in the mood for. But you won't find Broadway-style productions or over-the-top attractions. Entertainment here is elegant, intimate, and low-key, not built for spectacle. The crowd tends to skew older than the mass market lines, but much younger than you'll find on luxury lines, with a lot of multi-generational families traveling together. While kids are welcome on board, it's worth mentioning that this isn't the kind of ship where your kids are going to run wild through the hallways. There's only a small kids club, no character meet and greets, and no water park on board. And that's kind of the point. Explora Journeys was designed for adults who want to unplug, unwind, and connect, whether that's with each other, with new friends, or with the destinations they're visiting. So if you're looking for a cruise that trades high energy for high intention, this might be your new favorite way to sail. But even after all the surprises and quiet moments of joy, the real question remained: would we actually want to do it again? So, would we sail Explora Journeys again? Absolutely. But it might be a while, because we only take one couple's cruise a year without kids, and we like to experience something new each time, both for ourselves and so we can keep sharing fresh perspectives like this one with you. While Explora Journeys does allow children on board, their Ocean Terrace suites only accommodate up to 3 guests. So for our family of 4, we need to upgrade to a larger suite, which pushes the price well past $20,000. And as much as we love this cruise, that is is a tough pill to swallow for a family trip. But if you're a couple or a solo traveler who prefers a quieter, more refined experience without a ton of kids on board, that limited capacity might actually be one of the reasons you fall in love with this brand. And if you want to see what it's actually like to spend a week on board Explora One, from the food to the suites to all the moments we didn't expect, we filmed the whole thing and shared it on our second channel, Family at Sea Adventures. So I'll see you over there because you're not going to want to miss this. If you're ready, I am. Let's go.